Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, welcome to this online conversation. I'm Marina Ludemann, Director of the Goethe-Institut Bulgaria, and I'm pleased to introduce Stefan Kaegi. Stefan Kaegi founded the theater label Rimini Protokoll together with Helga Haug and Daniel Wetzel in 2000, I think. They have developed numerous interventions, performances, audio plays, etc. in the last 21 years. Lots of them have toured the world, and there are probably very few countries where you haven't been invited yet. In Bulgaria, you have developed the project Cargo Sofia in 2006. And in 2019, in the frame of the European Capital of Culture in Plovdiv, you presented 100% Plovdiv. And now you are back in Bulgaria with Uncanny Valley, thanks to the World Theatre Festival in Sofia and Varna Summer Festival. I have seen the performance some time ago on video, and I have to admit that I couldn't imagine how much it would impress me to see it in real. When the lights on the stage gradually go on and the humanoid robot sits there, you get goosebumps. You really feel the creepiness of the uncanny valley. And days later, you still reflect on questions like, what does it mean for us humans when we are replaced by machines? And other questions that are at the core of the project EthicAI, a project by the Goethe-Institutes in Southeast Europe, which invited experts from the arts, the humanities, and the IT sector from Southeast European countries to work together and discuss ethical questions related to artificial intelligence. We are convinced that these topics can only be explored in an interdisciplinary manner. And Uncanny Valley is the proof that only art is able to explore the emotional dimensions of the topic. And therefore, we are very happy to have you here with us, Stefan Kaegi. We hope you are the original. And now I pass the mic to Denica Ezekieva from the World Theatre Festival.
Hello, good afternoon, and I just want to say on behalf of World Theatre in Sofia and my colleagues from Varna to greet Stefan Kaegi, and thanks that we're able to show this performance, but also to reach the audience's expectations, because we have really interesting audiences' reactions. And because I was talking to the audiences on all of the 3 performances in the previous 2 days. I have heard lots of different reactions. Most of them are well, I'm not very surprised that most of the people that I know and that decide to speak to me afterwards thought about, not about the robot, thought about the writer and the real person. With the words with the words that as an organizer, I just want to say all the best to you and to Rimini Protokoll. I just want to mention the fact that it's also quite important that that Uncanny Valley is focused on something which I've personally found quite important and also uncanny, which is the mental illness And I was very surprised because I have to be honest, I'm not surprised of the fact that something that is not alive is alive at the stage. But I'm surprised of the final words of Thomas Melly, who actually said that this is the only thing. I mean, this his doppelganger, this robot, is the only thing that is finally something that could cure his illness, his emotions, and his situation, his current situation. That this is the first thing that helps him in his long journey of finding probably peace and way to feel cured from his depression and from his mental issues. And this is what really surprised me, that this was not tale, let's say, about artificial intelligence, but it was something that is focusing on a single man, which I also find quite interesting and emotional while watching 100% Plovdiv 3 years ago probably. And I just want to say thank you. That is my true feeling about what I was expecting and what I find in Uncanny Valley. I just want to say thank you that you find a way to think and to talk about mental illness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, now that you said this, I just realized that the last connection I had to Bulgaria, well, it's a long time ago. I haven't been back to Bulgaria since we produced Cargo, Sofia, which Marina Ludeman mentioned. But the last time I felt very close to Bulgaria was when I saw at DocFest Munich a film that maybe some of you may have seen. It's a Bulgarian film it's a very personal Bulgarian documentary film by, I believe, a Bulgarian filmmaker who was, I think, trained in Amsterdam, and when he came back to Bulgaria, he made a film about his one of his best friends who was not sure, schizophrenic or and who was actually then later committed suicide after they made this film together. Unfortunately, I don't know the title of the film, but
Eastern Place. I think it's Eastern Place, and the director is called Kamen Kalev. He's actually, I have to be a PR of Cannes Film Festival and to say that his latest movie, February, is in the certain regard award selection or something like this. I'm not so sure about the exact selection of his movie, but he last night he had the premiere in Cannes with his latest movie. Okay. So yeah, we are connecting actual cultural situations right now.
So we will jump a little bit in the world. Oh, sorry, somebody else wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to start the talk and to welcome you as well, and to so I'm really pleased to welcome you to the meeting with Stefan Kaegi that we do in the framework of EthicAI Labs project, and as well as, of course, taking the occasion of the Bulgarian tour of Uncanny Valley performance in Bulgaria that is organized by Fest. I'll tell you just a few words about EthicAI Labs, which is a joint project by the Goethe-Institutes in Athens, Bucharest, Ankara, Sarajevo, Sofia and Zagreb. And the project invites multidisciplinary dialogue and aims to research and reflect on up-to-date issues related with the ethical side of the artificial intelligence implementation in the human life. So EthicAI Labs core is very close to what Stefan Kaegi explores and presents in his performance in Uncanny Valley, in which the human actor, as we heard already, is replaced by a humanoid robot. Their performance asks various questions like what happens when when the copy takes over? Does the original gets to know himself better through his electronic double? Does the copy and its original complete, or do they help each other? So I hope that we will be able to look for answers for these and other questions together with our guest, Stefan Kaegi, who was so kind to take some time in his very busy schedule to meet with us. So I will start the talk presenting him very briefly. Stefan Kaegi co-produced works with Harald Hau and Daniel Wetzel under the label Rimini Protokoll, which they founded in 2000. Work by work, they have expanded the means of the theater to create new perspectives on reality. Rimini Protokoll often develops their stage works, interventions, performative installations, and audio plays together with experts who have gained their knowledge and skills beyond the theater. Furthermore, they like to transpose rooms or social structures into theatrical formats. Many of their work feature interactivity and a playful use of technology. Stefan Kaegi is based in Berlin and produces documentary theater plays and works in public space in a diverse variety of collaborative partnerships. Kaegi has toured across Europe and Asia with 2 Bulgarian lorry drivers and a truck, which was converted into a mobile audience room in the project Cargo Sofia that we mentioned already. He has adapted remote text on Auditor for 50 headphones to dozens of cities from Taipei to Santiago de Chile, and toured the interactive installation Naturelas that portrays people who have not much time to live, as well as Uncanny Valley, a monologue for a community robot, and Tempo do Present, a solo for a live octopus on stage. I believe we can go on for a very long time with presentation of Stefan Kaegi rich portfolio, but I will stop here and take the opportunity to talk to him in person. Just before to give the floor to him, a few technical practicalities of this event. Stefan Kaegi will present 3 of his projects, Remote X, Top Secret International, and Uncanny Valley, in which he has exploited in a very interesting way artificial intelligence and other technologies like surveillance, etc. After each project presentation, we will make a break so that you can ask immediate questions or comment on the project. After Stefan Kaegi talk, we will continue with the discussion with him. You can ask your questions live in the Zoom meeting or in the chat of there, as well as you can do this in the YouTube channel chat of the live streaming. The link of the Zoom meeting you can find in the Facebook event. So then I'm very thrilled to give the floor to Stefan Kaegi to tell us more about this project. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I think I'll jump right into some projects, and I thought as a quick reminder for those who haven't seen Uncanny Valley and who've heard now some of the people who spoke before me talk about it, I just quickly show some pictures. This is Thomas Melle, the original, but measured by the guy who created the robot that now stands for him on stage. That were like his first drawings. And then in the Kammerspiele Munich, they made of silicone his head, the outside, while the robotics were created inside. You see the copy of his hands at the back. And now you may understand why Marina asked in the beginning, are you really the original? Because it really looks quite close. For instance, the hair that Kammerspiele Munich used to reproduce him, some of them are from animals, others are from human beings as well. And the question to make a little bridge to the projects that talk about artificial intelligence, I will just a moment show a little excerpt.
There's a machine working for you. But how come you are so certain that you can check the box, I am not a robot, whenever your computer asks you to? Don't you sometimes have difficulties recognizing the images and letters on the CAPTCHAs? CAPTCHA is an acronym for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. In other words, a reverse Turing test. In old people's homes, machines are now being used that look like humans. Studies show that these humans are good for us humans. Machines can be friends, as long as they look very similar to us.
So machines can be friends as long as they look very similar to us. So I was just showing this short excerpt because I thought it's a project that makes you think a lot about artificial intelligence, but it basically does what he says. It puts a copy of a human being that is driven by machines in front of people, and people start projecting their empathy on the person on stage. But it's not an artificial intelligence. It's programmed, as a matter of fact, in such a way that it really only can do exactly the performance that it can. So it's very linear. I therefore now will do a detour, or maybe towards the end we come back to Uncanny Valley, we'll see, but I'll do a little detour into questions about how can artificial intelligence or simulations of it somehow be used in theater, technologies be used in theater to maybe get closer to the audience. That's what we are here I'm in Barcelona, and I'm just teaching a workshop here together with some scientists as well, with young artists from the Catalonian scene about artificial intelligence and theater. And I guess the question that brings us together is, how can we get somehow close to our audience? And how can we artistically use what the Californian West Coast companies use in a commercial way, ways of interacting with the users. And the first time this topic kind of moved me, I guess, was the project Remote X, which is still being shown everywhere, every now and then somewhere. At the moment, I think in Istanbul, that's probably the closest to Varna, to Sofia. There will be shows this summer, and also in Thessaloniki there should be versions of this project that is basically an audio tour. 50 people are given headphones and they start walking through the city, but they follow a voice that is a computer voice. All of us have navigators, I guess, in our cars, or we use them when we try to find our way through the city. And my question was, these voices that are technically reproduced or technically transformed human voices, what kind of characters do these voices take on? And what kind of a performance or character do they elaborate? Let's watch a little bit of the trailer.
Welcome to remote Berlin. My name is Rachel. I sound a bit artificial. Sorry. I am not human, but I will try to be your friend. I'm programmed for you. I'm programmed so that you will always find your way. Let yourself be carried by the music. The others are doing it too. They join you and you flow onwards together.
0 degrees. Turn with the sound, slowly, like a security camera. 90 degrees. Scan your surroundings. 180 degrees.
If you left your thoughts on my hard drive, I could talk for you after your death. Your ideas could live on. But this time without doubts, without pain, without the others.
How I also.
So basically we follow this computer voice through the city. Some of you may think of Her, the film that appeared just 1 year after we have elaborated on this project. Her is a film about also an artificial intelligence with a female voice that one of the users starts falling in love with and believes more and more in the reality of it. And I guess what this film has in common with our project is that you look back at reality from the perspective of a machine, and you ask questions about why do we behave the way we do, and I think that's one role for which the figure of the artificial intelligence or the robot can play in theater, that it kind of throws us back the gaze from an external entity, a bit the alien perspective on ourselves. For instance, here in a supermarket.
Here, humans hand over money. They smile but they don't speak. They try to act towards each other in an almost mechanical way. This is how humans work, 8 hours a day. Protected by a bubble of politeness. But in the back there are people queuing. Humans make other humans wait. Each one of them hates the person in front of him. Multiplicity is a problem here. On the other side of the supermarket you can see the future. Over there, nobody has to wait. Customers are served by machines. Machines that communicate. Like me. Now go to the door and it will open for you.
As you can hear, the sounds are very customized for exactly the situations where the things happen. And it feels a little bit like augmented reality, but it's much more simple than that on a technical level. I'll come back to this.
I am imagining you and your horde as a political group. A movement. What do you stand for? Look in your bag. Is there anything in there that sets you apart? Take it out and hold it in your hand discreetly, as a slight gesture of difference. Now walk onto the street. Now turn right and walk as a demonstration in front of the cars. Lift up your object above your head. Hold it up so everybody can see it. And already you are a small, non-uniform mass. A potential.
So the voice brings us to do things that we might not want to do in the beginning, but gradually you're seduced to take more and more part in a game, which from the outside, by the way, looks strange. We now don't have sound, so we see the spectators of this show as random passers-by would see them in this kind of flash mob setup, doing things, but from the inside it feels very much like a demonstration, so much that when we did it in Moscow, for instance, producers were very afraid of what would happen because we did it just 500 meters from the Kremlin, a place that is not at all a place where demonstrations normally take place. Yeah, so this is Remote X. It's actually, and how do we produce it? I mean, I said already, technically it's actually rather simple. It's just MP3 players that transmit with a little silent disco system to headphones and the audios that we pre-produce. But we do an extensive research before, which I guess is a little bit comparable to when you program artificial intelligence. You need a lot of data about the matter you want to talk about. And in our case, we talk about very specific places. So for instance, this is the map of remote Berlin. We start in the cemetery mostly. So here on the top left, we started in the cemetery, and then we come across certain places. We often use the public transport as well. So we kind of map these places during 2 weeks. Me and the sound designers, or somebody else that writes it, and the sound designers, they spend every day quite a lot of time exactly in a place, and we look at what is happening there, so that this particular place, with the way people move there, can become our scenography, and our text can react to them by anticipation, which I guess is how Siri in the end knows how to answer certain questions, because the programmers behind it kind of study what might be the questions that want to be asked to Siri. This is in London, this is in Buenos Aires. So it's quite an extensive mapping of these places that then produces a particular route here through Jerusalem, or here through Tehran even, where we also made it, where we very site-specifically make something that kind of becomes an experience that is highly immersive, because it is very much customized for the place. This is where I'm going to just stop a little bit and give you the chance, if somebody has a question or wants to share their experience. Maybe somebody has seen remote somewhere, I don't know, which want to share their experiences about. If you have a question, then just switch on your microphone or maybe even your camera so we can see you.
Yes, please.
I wanted to share that it's so unsettling to even watch this short cut of it. I wonder what was the participants' feedback from participating in actually having the headphones on and being navigated around the city.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a, I mean, it's obviously something different than sitting in an audience room. And some people say, but you're asking us to do a lot. I always respond, well, when you ask me to sit down and be silent inside a theater and switch my mobile phone out for 2 hours, you also ask me actually a lot, even more maybe, because, and here people can kind of follow the route. And what I find particularly, and we've very positive responses, especially also from younger crowds who play it a little bit like a computer game for themselves, although it's not at all an open world, to use terms of game programmation. You can't just go left and the sound will be reacting to the fact that you're going left. You might just lose connectivity and you don't hear anything anymore if you go apart. So it's also a game about collaboration between the group. And when young people are there, then sometimes they go faster and we trigger the MP3 tracks a little bit faster. So some interesting feedback that I got was that people enjoy giving away decisions for the duration of an hour and a half, which might sound scary, but in a way it's also, I guess, typical that in a time where we give so much choices to take from, once we trust an artistic project, we're actually quite happy to kind of let our body do things as long as they feel satisfying on the way, and they do, because the sounds, the longer you walk, become more and more immersive. We record them with binaural recording, and we create very special sound scores for places that you might well know but never have experienced that way. Anybody else to comment, or should
I just wanted to, also to add to this question and your comment on this, that I was thinking probably you've presented this in different ways, in different places, I mean. And have you noticed how people really interact based on their cultural specificities? Because I presume that is very different in Berlin or in a city in Asia or in Moscow. So what's your observation on that? How people behave, generally speaking, due to their background, let's say, cultural, social, etc., you know?
Well, I was told, for instance, that people in Helsinki wouldn't really want to interact, but I was surprised they were quite active. So you might be surprised that cliches don't always pay off the way that you might expect them. One of the most difficult cities to make the project in was, by surprise, not Shanghai, where we had to compromise on certain things because groups bigger than 10 people are considered a demonstration, which is totally illegal. So yeah, to ask for a lot of special permissions in Shanghai. But the most difficult city I found, New York, because it's so privatized that they even asked for money to rent, to pay, so that we could visit the cemetery. It's a city that the film industry has so much turned into a place where every single place that you think is a public space is privatized. Yeah, just one anecdote maybe from from the research process on the way. But maybe I jump a little bit forward into another project, which is more even artificial intelligence, because again, if we speak in game worlds, I said it's not an open world remote, it's more like a hit and run game, although you don't hit anybody, but it's you can speed it up or you can slow it down by the way you walk, but you can't change really the directions. That's different in a project that is called Top Secret International, which is documentary as opposed to remote, which is more a bit of a science fiction, I would say. So Top Secret International is a project which we developed because we wanted to work about the post-democratic institution that the Secret Service is. I know in Bulgaria you have a lot of experience with it, the ones who've still lived the Shivkov times. We talked to a lot of people who are working for secret services and are whistleblowers or journalists that talk directly with them, or people that have been victims of secret services, and we wanted to make a play about it, but found out they would never stand on stage or even let us film them. So we could only work with audio material, and we decided that we will devise an experience for a place where agents in movies often meet, which is a museum. So we adapted into different kinds of museums. Here we are in the Glyptothek in Munich, a museum for sculptures. The audience arrive, there is audience that just is there for seeing the sculptures, which is not our audience. And there is one place where at the info point you go and you say you want to see Top Secret International, you will receive a headphone and a little notebook that is a bit heavier than a normal scrapbook. And you have to sign off on this computer, as you see here, that you are okay to take this thing and give it back, and you press enter once, which takes on importance later in the game or in the play.
We are almost ready. Go into the next room. The room with the boy and the goose. Find the quiet place to sit down. You are in the Glyptothek in Munich, in room number 13.
The system has identified your position. You need to get to know your legend first. That's what we in the intelligence call a role that is tailor-made for you, so that you can perform your true mission undercover. By all appearances, you are a perfectly normal museum visitor. You do what people do in museums. You walk around. You look at the exhibits. You learn about their history and listen to background information about them on your audio guide. You make your observations. But actually, you're here to learn something about something whose nature is invisible. It's as old as the items being conserved and on exhibit here. They say that it's the world's second oldest profession.
But now it's time for you to walk around the boy with the goose. Is this a game or a battle?
How would this story have ended if it hadn't been frozen in time? In a moment, you will enter the network of intelligence with your body. Unlike these sculptures, you can move your body.
I am going to locate you.
So?
Okay, now stroll slowly on into the next room.
You will record, collect, and analyze information without being noticed by those around you. You'll be equipped with a single object, which for reasons of camouflage is a notebook. Use it like one.
You moved.
You're doing great.
You are now in the domed room with Domitian in room number 12. His legs are missing from the knees down, and only...
So what has happened so far, you're basically walking, and obviously you don't know exactly who belongs to the Rimini Protokoll project and who is just having headphones because they listen to the audio guide of the museum. And while you're walking, when you're walking forward to the next room, the next audio file is triggered. So it's until there kind of linear, but you kind of trigger the next sound file. Later in the project, it gets a bit more complex.
Question for you.
If you have a person in front of you who knows the code to deactivate a bomb in a room with 50 people in it, Would you resort to violence at the last minute in the hope of getting the code? If the answer is yes, hold the notebook vertically over your head on my signal. Ready? Now.
Interesting. So, you would resort to violence.
So the script goes on differently because it has detected this gesture, which is due to the fact that there is a smartphone kind of device inside the notebook. And as you know, they don't have only kind of orientation sensors, but also, I don't know how the tilting mechanism is also measured by the phone. So this gesture is measured and triggers a next sound file. So if you're looking at the script, this is like chronologically looking from the beginning at the top downwards in the course of the performance. There we are somewhere here. You don't see my cursor. Well, you're somewhere kind of in the place where the first bifurcation takes place. So there are two different audio files according to what you answer, and later you can see further down there is even places in the script where we have 3 or 4 or 5 different options in different directions to decide which audio files you trigger according to what decisions, or actually not, you don't take decisions, something it asks you questions about your behaviors, and according to it builds up a profile, but that you probably aren't aware of yet in that moment. But later in the game, we're kind of playing back these decisions, much alike probably Google does censor all our decisions we do when we click around on Google websites, and later plays them back to us, but they do it with a commercial purpose to kind of show you certain advertisements or not. Later it gets a bit more complicated in the game because we identify in a particular scene one other player in the game. Until then you don't know who belongs actually to the Rimini visitors, but there suddenly you are sent to a place to meet somebody else.
Go to the cafe. Here in the museum, you are watching other people who clearly belong to the same network as you do. They have also found many documents in these rooms, but you don't know which ones or how many. I'm going to share a contact with you now, and the contact will be informed about the meeting.
The meeting will be arranged in the cafe. You're standing in the cafe again. You have an appointment here. Wait here for the key person who has been determined for you. Save a seat, if possible. You have time. The wait might be long. Just look around a while.
I have determined a person.
Be aware. The person who has been chosen as your key person is now in this room with you. Look around. Maybe you'll recognize them. Then, as a sign, hold your notebook up with the arrow pointing upwards until it starts vibrating.
Just to recognize.
Your contact person will give you a sign by holding a notebook as if it were a telephone. Respond to the greeting by stretching. Sit with your contact if you can. Sit next to each other discreetly, if possible, but without speaking. Very discreetly. Do you still have that piece of paper where you wrote down what you were afraid of? Try to give it to your contact without arousing attention. Without speaking. Go ahead, very discreetly. Your meeting will release another document.
Very good. The meeting was registered.
So here you're really entering in contact. It might look a bit childish, this thing about exchanging papers, but the journalists we talked to actually told us very much that since Snowden and even before, obviously, we are so much surveilled by our mobile phones that can be turned into microphones easily by secret services, that these kind of meetings that are offline, that are totally kind of haptic, where you exchange little papers, is actually something that happens between agents quite regularly, more than before even now. Later in the performance, you can, here it's the more complicated part of the script, where you see that it's a bit tricky in terms of programming, how to get people, then how to identify that there is somebody free, and how long to let somebody wait until they can pair the audiences, because we only want them to be paired after a certain level that they have reached in the play. And so then we bring them towards the end of the performance to places also that you know less of the museum, for instance, to the toilets.
Secretly financed and monitored by Iranian intelligence. Your work here is done.
Stand up and go into the anteroom.
But don't forget to flush.
Yes, leaving the bathroom stall without flushing is very suspicious. Then go to the sink and wash your hands. Now you can risk a glance in the mirror. Who do you see there?
Don't forget, you're a perfectly normal museum visitor. You are just here for the exhibit.
Now go back into the main hall, and then continue to the right, into the next room. Around the corner and to the left you'll find the grey door to the boiler room. Open the door. Go inside. Look at the screen more closely.
Type in the password 656788 without waking the screen up, then press enter. Now you are looking at the museum from above. Every face represents an information character.
So here you see actually why there was this enter moment with the computer, because that was when a picture was taken of you in front of the screen. And now you see all the other users in the game, so to speak, that are distributed over the places. And you understand that obviously the way that surveillance works now maybe gives more power to Facebook or Google or these kind of companies than to the secret services. And obviously they have different interests in what they're working for than governments, which are most of them hopefully still elected. So that is Top Secret International, and maybe I'll stop here the projection a bit to open the floor again to, I don't know, comments, questions, if you have.
You don't see, maybe if someone wants to ask questions, just switch on the camera and unmute yourself, please.
Or don't mute yourself if you want to say something. Yeah. I mean, maybe I can show still the map which we created when we toured this project. We have to adapt it very much to different museums, and obviously then we rewrite part of the script even more maybe than with Remote X, because in Zurich, for instance, we were in a museum of paintings, mainly like 13th to 18th century paintings. That's in Kunsthaus Zürich, in a place where, yeah, you see how we kind of started to research which audio file is located in which room and in front of which painting. Then you hear what story being told to you. So this is a very practical kind of application of how artificial, well, I mean, is it artificial intelligence? I mean, it starts there are many shades of it. And in this case, what we most work with is just the fact that we kind of research a bit of data about our users and then play them back at them, and therefore get somehow closer around the spectator. I guess that is probably the chance and the challenge of this kind of interactive theater forms, to try to let the audience more and more immerse, and therefore play back at them partly who they are, while we combine it with contents that are important for us. I guess that is hopefully what could be a bit of a promise of these technologies in the theater world. While in classical theater, obviously, we were invited to sit in the dark, and we were not there, basically. We were not to be seen, we were to be silent, and if you even unwrap a little chewing gum, the audience around it would hate you. In these kind of performances, you are very visible, you are somehow even the center of the action, and still we try to always bring content that brings you further away from just the narcissistic self-experience that is normally the idea of all the social media platforms now, where you're staying in your bubbles. So these were my answers. Galina, you told me to reflect on the ethical implications of artificial intelligence. I guess this is where I would say, obviously, the way artists use these technologies doesn't necessarily mean that they imply the same problematics that come along the use of them in platforms that suddenly take over half our lives. Yeah, maybe this is enough of projects, because we are already far advanced in times, in terms of time, I think.
Yes, so we can then start the discussion with people questions or comments. And thank you for this comment on the implications of artificial intelligence in artistic practice, in your artistic practice, because yes, for sure. I mean, I know that it's absolutely from different perspective, everyday use and artistic exploitation, which is by default with some critical approach and so on. So that was related with my question: what's your take about this debate of AI and ethics? And do you think these technologies threaten us as humans, or they are simply can be understood as tools for enhancing our lives, etc.? So it's not a simple question, and I don't expect simple answers, but just from this perspective, I would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing here on Monday with a researcher that talked a lot about the potentials of face recognition softwares, and obviously some of these algorithms have problematics, like they're mostly collecting their data in a Western world. They're might repeat prejudgments that are around us. But I see a lot of applications where you have to say it just simply works in a very effective way. And I guess an example is the way that translation software has developed in the last years. If Google Translate is more or less okay, I think, but if you're looking for a really good translator, I do recommend always DeepL. I don't have an idea if they're good in Bulgarian or not, but the languages I'm used to translate to, I'm really surprised how much it has developed. And obviously it has developed thanks to collection of masses of data of how language is being used. And there I would say rather useful if it helps us to get people in contact with people that they normally wouldn't speak other languages of, then I would be very happy. Another field where we could obviously ethically debate a lot is medicine. I guess you're probably aware of Watson, which is an IBM program that tries to kind of centralize health data in massive amounts to allow, I guess, midterm to replace doctors or to reduce doctor or to help doctors, if you want to formulate it positively, by giving them more database. And I see the good side of it. I see seldom diseases can be better treated with more databases about seldom disease patients on the other side of the world. But we also have to ask ourselves, and there we come back to the main question of Uncanny Valley, do we want to become more and more efficient? Do we really want to live longer and longer? Do we want to continue this path of not trusting our uncertainty, which has helped Thomas Melle in a kind of modular way? But sometimes it might be good to accept the fragility of human life and not stabilize ourselves. But this is me saying it into a computer which works with certain tools that have been developed to make us more efficient, and it seems to be working for us. So we're all in it.
Yes, thank you for this answer. So I'd like to encourage, because I see some of the EthicAI Labs project fellows that have joined the Zoom meeting, that they also get part in this discussion, because we had a workshop with them yesterday on the topic of creativity, and they were very excited about this opportunity to have you now in this meeting. So someone wants to take the floor? Apparently not. Okay, let me check also for some questions from the YouTube. Okay, so we have one question that is already answered. All right, so if there are no more questions, then probably.
Well, actually, I also wanted to ask a question, because what interests me the most is how your work presents how new technology can also change the classical notion of theater, which is like not only it is about the place and the organization of the watching process of how people sit in the theater hall and so on, but also this classical ancient Greek notion of drama, and of how the Handlung, the action, the play is developed. So the whole dramaturgy is changed in your work, and I'm very much interested of how not only people's participations drive the dramaturgy, but also how the technology can be a drive for it. And maybe I can add here, recently we had a discussion at the Goethe-Institute, participating some famous Bulgarian theater people such as Ani Vaseva, who then expressed a thesis, which was she said that during her career as a theater director, she realized that what drives the action is not a problem, but the action itself. Using this, I wanted to ask, what is the role of technology then in this very question of dramaturgy? What drives the action?
Well, I mean, technology is very old in theater. We know the Deus ex machina, who is a Greek invention, old Greek theater, not very far from Sofia. And it has been mostly used for illusion. I think that has a bit changed, because often when I see pieces that are using technology in the moment, they seem to be also interested in making visible the technology they're using. We discussed a lot when we did Uncanny Valley, shall we make the robot visible in its robotism? So in the end, we decided to leave the head open, but you only see it from certain corners of the audience. So I still experience that some audience members come and they may have read the announcement of the program, we're not hiding that it's a robot on stage, but they still kind of buy the illusion because they want it, and there we go back, which to the maybe most essential question for me that comes from Thomas Melle during this play is, how are we programmed to read certain things? No, our precondition suddenly there it becomes a bit vertiginous. No, if that's an English word, vertigineux. The idea that we seem to be not able to avoid believing a puppet that it's a human being, although we know that it's a puppet, or because we kind of we're programmed to read it that way. So I guess illusion is one technique that it has been used a lot for theater, but I think the potential really that I'm interested here in my workshop in Barcelona to develop with the artists I'm working here with is rather a different one. It's rather about a certain co-authorship of the spectator, which would eventually lead to, again, what game designers call the open worlds, the potential that you are, I mean, you will always be guided. Open world is probably the wrong term, but to let you follow and be given certain choices and let the text react. I think this is a promise that is very interesting. I can recommend very much a work by Begüm Ersayas. She's a Turkish, Belgian, German artist that has created a work that is called Pillow Talks. Maybe you want to have a look at that. It's really an amazing artificial intelligence piece where she created a pillow that you lay down on and that starts to talk to you, and it works with voice recognition software in such a way that it asks you a question and you really can only, you have more than just multiple choice answers to talk with this device, where you're constantly exploring until where does this character go. I guess we've all experiences with trying to bring Siri to answer questions that she's not willing to answer, and then we find these jokes that the programmers have placed, and these jokes are very much like the typical kind of American style thing. But I think when it's artistically treated, that structure of dialogue, which is not a dialogue behind the fourth wall, but rather a dialogue audience performer, has a potential which I'm hoping to explore in works to come.
Thank you. I see that one of our project fellows, Sinem Gürücü, has commented in the chat of Zoom, and would like to ask Sinem, would you like to take the floor and ask your question? If so, please switch on your camera.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if it's a question, but I just, like, while watching, I just kept wondering how would the audience react to avoid the surveillance and face recognition if they were aware of it. I kept thinking, if I was there and I was aware of it, I would probably, obey the voice in a very different way, right? In a very, I don't know, indirect way. Yeah, so I was just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we do have audience that is very sensitive to data protection. And that's why, for instance, we are erasing the pictures that are stored that are replayed to you when you're opening that screen in Top Secret International. We're kind of erasing them after the show immediately. I guess still they kind of trust that we are not, I guess, that we're not selling them to, I don't know, child pornography producers or whoever. I don't know where the use of the face would be, where it would feel awkward for people. I guess when you go into such a play, you also understand that it's an exceptional situation where you're trying to go further than in a reality. But obviously we're asked these questions, and very rightly so. But I think we should ask these questions much more to the companies whose products we're buying or whose social platforms we're using, because they use our data probably for more commercial purposes than the artists that work with these kind of tools.
I have a question.
Yeah, definitely, but I mean, like within the settlement also, because they were kind of doing stuff without revealing their identity and like talking to other people directly, right? So if they knew they're being watched to that degree, I don't know. I was just thinking, yeah, like within the actually, like I'm not talking about how their data is used afterwards, but like how they would react within the settlement to not reveal their identity, but still keep obeying the voice, you know?
Well, their identity is stays intact. It's not, or actually it stays hidden for us. We don't know their names, I guess, or so it's, yeah, we don't have really sensitive data about them. We have data about how they moved from one room to another, but this is not very, we can't sell this to the Chinese Secret Service, I think. Probably not interested. There was somebody else there.
Yeah, there is another question from Desi Fesenko. Desi, would you like to pose your question to Stefan? Or?
Yes, gladly. Thank you very much for the presentation, Stefan, and your insights. It's very helpful and amazingly realistic, and of course, a wonderful creative perspective. I just wondered, and picking up on Stefka's question, to what extent in Uncanny Valley the way the audience perceived the robot as a kind of human-like experience, the interaction with it as a human-like, quite natural experience, to what extent this was influenced by the authenticity of the outlook, of the voice of the robot, of the topics it discussed, or of its provocativeness in the way it made statements and asked questions?
I think that a big part in the answer why people feel so much empathy with this robot particularly is that it's a fragile one. And when we developed the piece, we discussed a lot, should it be a female robot, should it be and you know, there is, you probably know Sofia, this product of, I think, a Hong Kong-based company that goes to all the talk shows and kind of pretends to be an artificial intelligence, but it's a puppet that kind of reproduces words, but it's kind of, you know, it's young, sexy woman kind of thing, the Lara Croft type of thing. And then we have some other androgyne, but young, strong kind of Robocop kind of examples of, or we have all of these Japanese comics, manga lookalike robots. And our idea was really to create a reproduction of kind of a bit of an older, a bit too fat and a bit depressive person, which allows, I guess, another kind of identification. We don't meet any, yeah, we normally know machines as one when we want things to become very efficient and speed things up and get well done when they're like young and efficient. And here there's a bit of an inefficient robot because it's the copy of a bit of a sad personality. And I think that is, yeah, at least a part. I don't know how many people really then forget totally that it's a robot. I think there are many layers where you can forget these kind of things, which is a theater mechanism. You can go to the theater and forget that Hamlet is an actor, although you obviously know him. And I think in Brazil, people killed the protagonist of a TV series because he behaved bad. His role behaved badly, and they kind of apparently forgot that it was his role and not his real life. So all of these levels kind of are potentially there. Yeah. Actually, I think the time is kind of a bit over, and I will have to go back to my workshop here in Barcelona. If you don't
there is
mind.
one last question, Stefan. Would you very briefly just take it? And that's the last one, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
From Stefania Budolan. I will read it just to not lose more time. Did you ever capture the participants' feedback after the experiences? If so, how was their overall feeling? Can this be acute or extrovert self-awareness or discomfort of behaving differently in public?
If we monitor audience behaviors, is that the question, right?
Yeah, you can see it in the chat. Did you ever capture the participants' feedback after the experience? When the performance is over?
Yeah, I see your workshop is very interested in data capturing. Well, we just discussed here in the workshop that it's an interesting phenomenon that the more participative these kind of projects, remote or tips, obviously there is then more data. And if you want to look at a project that is, I'll type it in the chat, Home Visit Europe, there's a website for it and there's a video about it. Where do I put it in the chat here? Then you will find a project where we have actually taken quite a lot of data that were taken from the audience in a course. It's a very particular project where we went to hundreds of different homes, and it was always a performance for 15 people in each one of these homes. And there is a little kind of a computer with which the people actually play a game with each other, but also with this machine. They vote, and they do give opinions, which these data, not secretly, but they're kind of collected, and you will find them on this website. There is a register of all I think it's more than 250 performances that have already happened. That's an example where we did this. I'm not always sure what it's good for, actually. We do a lot of tryouts in the making of these kind of projects, and there, yes, we look at how do they understand? Do we need to organize the communication process? Because theater in the end is a communication process. Do we need to organize it differently so that it works? But then there's limits to how can you objectively have an answer to if an art piece works or not, obviously. So yeah, I think there are other places where people produce more relevant data. But we've been working with statistics a lot, but more in the application of it. We like 100% Plovdiv is a piece where we've worked with statistics, but these were pre-existent statistics. And then we let people give answers, but they're not, the idea is not to make them available somewhere else. It's really to use them in the theater as it happens.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being with us, and I wish you good luck with the workshop and with your other projects that you are working on now. So have a nice evening and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. And for those who are close to Varna and haven't seen the performance, go and see it, I think, tomorrow, the theater.
Yes, Uncanny Valley is in Varna tomorrow. Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Do widzenia.
Do widzenia.